Have you ever met someone who apologizes for everything? They say sorry when someone bumps into them. They apologize for asking questions. They say sorry for existing in a space. Even when they've done nothing wrong, the word sorry falls out of their mouth automatically. It seems polite at first, but psychology says over-apologizing isn't about good manners. It's about deep insecurity, trauma, and a belief that they're always somehow in the wrong. Let's break down the real psychology behind people who apologize too much. 1. They grew up walking on eggshells. For many people, over-apologizing starts in childhood. Maybe they grew up with parents who were unpredictable, easily angered, or emotionally volatile. They learned that anything they did could be wrong, could set someone off, could lead to punishment or rejection. Psychologists call this hypervigilance, a trauma response where you're constantly monitoring your behavior to avoid triggering others. Saying sorry became a survival strategy. It was safer to apologize preemptively than to risk someone's anger. Research shows that children raised in unstable or emotionally abusive environments often develop chronic apologizing as adults. They carry that childhood fear into every interaction, convinced that they're always one mistake away from being too much, too loud, too present. So they apologize for simply existing. 2. They have extremely low self-worth. People who apologize excessively often believe they're inherently problematic, that their presence is an inconvenience, that their needs don't matter. Psychologists link this to core shame, a deep-seated belief that there's something fundamentally wrong with them. They don't just feel bad about what they do, they feel bad about who they are. Research shows that people with low self-esteem use apologies as a way to minimize themselves, to make themselves smaller, less threatening, less likely to be rejected. Every sorry is really saying, please don't be mad at me, please don't leave, please tolerate my existence. They've internalized the message that they're a burden, and apologizing constantly is their way of trying to justify taking up space in the world. 3. They're people pleasers who fear conflict. Some people over-apologize because they're terrified of confrontation or disapproval. They'll say sorry even when they're right just to keep the peace. Psychologists call this conflict avoidance, and it's often rooted in anxious attachment styles. They believe that disagreement equals rejection, so they apologize to smooth things over, to prevent tension, to make sure everyone likes them. Studies show that chronic people pleasers often sacrifice their own needs, boundaries, and dignity to maintain harmony. But the cost is high. They lose their voice, they lose their sense of self, and they teach others that their feelings and needs don't matter. Every unnecessary apology reinforces the belief that keeping others comfortable is more important than honoring their own truth. 4. They were blamed for things that weren't their fault. Many people who apologize too much carry guilt that was never theirs to carry. Maybe they were scapegoated in their family. Maybe a parent blamed them for their unhappiness. Maybe they were made to feel responsible for other people's emotions or problems. Psychologists call this inappropriate guilt or misplaced responsibility. These individuals learned early that when something goes wrong, it must be their fault. So now, as adults, they automatically apologize even when logic says they've done nothing wrong. Research shows that children who are unfairly blamed develop a distorted sense of accountability. They become hyper-responsible for everything around them, constantly saying sorry because they've been conditioned to believe they're the problem. 5. They're trying to prevent abandonment. For some people, over-apologizing is a desperate attempt to keep others from leaving. They believe that if they apologize enough, if they take all the blame, if they make themselves small enough, people will stay. Psychologists say this stems from abandonment wounds, often from childhood experiences of being left, neglected, or emotionally abandoned. They've learned that relationships are fragile and conditional. So they use apologies as insurance, as a way to say, I'll do anything to make this right, just please don't go. Studies show that people with abandonment anxiety often engage in self-sabotaging behaviors to maintain connection, even if it means erasing their own needs. But the tragic irony is that constant apologizing doesn't create secure relationships. It creates imbalanced ones where their voice and worth are continuously diminished. 6. They don't know how to express themselves without softening. Many over-apologizers struggle to communicate their needs, opinions, or feelings directly. They've been taught that assertiveness is rude, that speaking up is aggressive, that having boundaries is selfish. So they soften everything with an apology. Sorry, but can I ask a question? Sorry, I was just thinking. Sorry for bothering you. Psychologists call this linguistic hedging, and it's particularly common in people who have been socialized to be non-threatening, especially women. Research shows that excessive apologizing undermines credibility and authority. It signals to others that what you're about to say isn't important. But these individuals aren't trying to be weak. They've just never been taught that they have the right to take up space, to ask for things, to exist without permission. So every statement comes wrapped in an apology. 7. They've been punished for being themselves. Some people apologize constantly because they were criticized, mocked, or rejected for expressing their authentic selves. Maybe their personality was too loud, too sensitive, too different. Maybe they were told they were too much or not enough. So they learned to apologize for their existence, for their quirks, for the parts of themselves that didn't fit someone else's expectations. Psychologists call this self-censorship or identity suppression. They've internalized the message that who they naturally are is wrong. Research shows that chronic self-monitoring and self-criticism lead to anxiety, depression, and a fragmented sense of identity. They spend their lives apologizing for being human, for having emotions, for daring to be visible. And every sorry chips away at what's left of their self-acceptance. 8. It's become an unconscious habit. Here's the thing. For many people, over-apologizing has become so automatic they don't even realize they're doing it. It's a verbal tick, a filler word, a reflex. Psychologists say that behaviors repeated enough become ingrained in our neural pathways. What started as a trauma response or survival mechanism has now become an unconscious pattern. Research in behavioral psychology shows that habits are hard to break, especially when they're tied to emotional regulation. Every time they say sorry, it provides a tiny sense of relief, of safety, of control. So even when they logically know they don't need to apologize, the word comes out anyway. Breaking this pattern requires conscious awareness, self-compassion, and retraining the brain to believe they're allowed to exist without constantly seeking forgiveness. So if you're someone who apologizes too much, hear this. You don't need to shrink yourself to be loved. You don't need to apologize for existing, for having needs, for taking up space. Your presence is not a burden, your voice matters, and you deserve to move through the world without constantly seeking permission to be here. Start noticing when you apologize unnecessarily. Replace sorry with thank you. Instead of sorry for being late, try thank you for waiting. Instead of sorry for bothering you, try thank you for your time. Small shifts create big changes, and slowly you'll learn that you're worthy of respect, connection, and belonging exactly as you are. If you want to understand the psychology behind the patterns that hold people back, subscribe now. Because on this channel, we're not just identifying problems. We're offering paths to healing and reclaiming your worth.